Annual church reports. Now, Matt, I think they are one of the most underrated church communication tools ever.
Problem is, most of them are really boring.
Yes.
That's why we're going to talk about why church annual reports matter, what you should include in them. We'll look at some really awesome examples and a lot more.
Well, prepare to have your mind blown. Matt, why do church annual reports matter even to begin with?
Well, first of all, they provide a lot of accountability and transparency. They're a great opportunity to talk about what has happened over the past year and how the money at the church has been spent.
Okay. What's another good reason?
Showcasing the church's impact is probably the number one reason why they matter. Because you can celebrate all the ministry that you all accomplished at your church, like the number of single moms that were ministered to, or the homeless people that were fed, or something like that.
Okay, so really kind of bringing the stories into the mix too. So it's more than just data that's, just something that someone can easily look at and start glazing over, but it's actually a story that someone can kind of, resonate with?
Yeah, but still give like the hard facts of like the numbers, because the numbers matter. The number, every number represents a person made in the image of God that was blessed by the church.
And that's really just kind of celebrating even particular milestones that we have in our church. And
yeah, but also celebrating achievements and milestones relates to like, did you raise enough money to update that building, or expand your church building, or buy a new one, or something like that? Or did you raise enough to finally hire someone full-time to be a children's minister, or something like that?
Okay. And I think the last thing that really helps when you have these annual reports for church is I feel like it just encourages people to actually go out and do something.
Yes.
It encourages people to get involved, which sometimes can be a challenge in ministry.
It's a huge challenge, and encouraging greater ministry and involvement at your church is something that the church annual report is probably best at.
Yeah. Because when someone looks at all these data points, or they read about these stories of what's happening in these different ministries, and that gets them looking at it like, wow, this is actually something I could see myself being a part of. I kind of want to do this ministry that they're talking about.
Exactly. It gets people really excited.
All right, now, annual reports, there's a whole lot of stuff we could talk about, like what to include on them, but what are some of the big things that a church annual report needs to have on it?
So first of all, you need to have financial information. However, don't go overboard. This isn't an opportunity to share your entire church budget.
No.
Share the big stuff, like the overall income, the overall expenses, your net position, just to use a really boring financial term.
Yeah.
But basically what you were left with after your income and expenses are calculated. That way you can show your church that you're being responsible with their donations.
And I think if you start showing way too much financial information, that can kind of take away from all the other things you actually want to talk about.
Well, also, like, your members won't know what to take away if you just overburden them with a lot of data. And it all just starts to turn into water off a duck's back. Like, they just don't retain any of it if you drown them in line items on a spreadsheet.
I have been there in those.
Me too. I've been to those annual reports.
All right, so what are some other things, beyond finances, what are some other things that are best to highlight in a church's annual report?
So, hearkening back to what we talked about, that a church annual report, why they matter, talking about like your accomplishments and your milestones that you experienced at your church, whether it be you hired some more staff, or you raised enough money to expand and start another church, maybe launch your church or something like that. Also, all the ministry that you accomplished, all the people that you helped, that has to be included in your report.
Okay. Another really good one, membership and attendance statistics.
Yes.
Just across the board. I mean, that's a big thing. Churches want to know, hey, how many more people have started attending our church, have been watching the live stream?
Yes.
I've actually seen some churches do that in their reports, where they'll show, hey, this is how many viewers our live stream had last year, and how many we have this year, and how we're impacting people all across the world.
Yes.
One church even had like these little points they put all around the world where people
like dots or pins or something?
Where they were watching the live stream
That's
from.
cool.
It was kind of neat to see that.
That is pretty rad. However, here's the thing. If your membership and attendance stats are on the downtrend, you should still include that in your report for two reasons. One, because your long-term members will notice that you've conspicuously stopped reporting on that. Also, because if your members see that downward trend, it could motivate them toward like evangelism and outreach and inviting more people in to curb those trends.
I have so many things I want to talk about that, but we'll talk about that in the next thing later. So another thing too, I mean, you said church leadership updates. I think just having testimonies, personal stories on there as well, just because sometimes it helps to have like one story that, especially if it's a really touching testimony of somebody, put that on there. And then probably every single time we do reports or anything that's big in front of the church, just kind of reiterating the church's vision, the plans of the church. What is the mission that the church has at hand?
You should always put your mission and vision statements on these annual reports, just to remind everybody what your purpose is as a church. But also to reiterate your goals for the next year and announce that so that everybody can be on the same page.
Okay, so that's stuff that we should include. Let's jump back to kind of the stuff that should not be included, because we talked about the attendance.
Yes.
So what should not be included in a church annual report?
So a lot of negativity. This should not be an opportunity to share a lot of doom and gloom about the state of the church. Again, we recommend you include attendance and membership statistics, even if it's on the downward trend, but you can still couch that in positive terms.
Yeah.
Because everyone there is still someone made in the image of God, and they're a part of the church body, and that needs to be celebrated, no matter whether your church is on a downward trend or an upward trend.
Okay.
But don't drag people down with a lot of negativity in your annual report. This needs to be an opportunity to celebrate and get people motivated for the future.
Yeah, and especially if your church had something dramatic happen, like a split or something, the last thing you want to put in your annual report is focusing on that, and then it can just further gossip and stuff, and that's we don't want that.
Absolutely not.
And this is one we talked about a second ago, but just to reiterate, like putting too much emphasis on the finances and getting into the minutia. I have been a part of church meetings where they're showing the annual report.
Yeah.
And I glaze over because I'm just like, I don't feel like looking at all these line items. They literally gave us a spreadsheet, which was insane.
Of the entire church budget.
Yeah.
I've been to those annual church meetings as well.
And that's a whole different type. That's a budget meeting. That's not like an annual report for our just entire congregation, so they can see the health of the church and what's going on.
At the very most, you can maybe include that as like a secondary attachment that people can review on their own time later. But for your annual report itself, this needs to be about vision casting and the future and everything that your church is going to do by God's grace.
Now, I have some really good examples, because it's one thing to talk about all this and like what they should have on there, what they should not have and stuff. So I did some hunting online, looking at some churches, their annual reports, and I want to show a couple of them here just real fast.
Some churches are really, really good at this, and I love that we're going to showcase this so that other churches can take inspiration from this.
So let me go back. This one, I'll go to the first page here. So this is
Ocean View Church.
Yeah, Ocean View Church. So they have like this really nice, like just slideshow going through this. They have like, it's been an incredible year, and it's like a little personalized note from the pastor with the verses there. Then going through this, I love this so much. Like showing like, all right, what's going on here? Well, we've had 125 decisions for Christ, and they have that cool infographic. They did this little world thing. I was just talking about the world thing for YouTube views, but all the missionaries they support. That's super cool. Being able to have that. 175 people took a mission trip. Like, that's cool.
Nice. 72 baptisms. This is just a really well put together infographic.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what we talked about, all the accomplishments and the milestones that your church experienced over the last year. Talk about that and celebrate it and make it big and bold like this church did.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like this is a big church, I'm assuming, with the number of baptisms and decisions, but like even if your church has only had like 5 baptisms or 5 people decide to follow Christ or whatever it is, celebrate it. Put those numbers on there because every number goes back to a person, and that person matters. Here's another one I was going through. So this is from, I believe it was from...
It's Elevation, I think.
This one's from Elevation. Now, obviously, I mean, this is a very long report going through here, but just look at the design and everything. Very much showing off these pictures, showing those numbers. And again,
And they're
like
big, they're loud. They're loud and proud about what God has done at their church.
and numbers aren't everything,
No.
But they're something. And it's good to have something on there that shows something tangible of what's actually happening here. And here's a really good example, the Thompson family story. And so they went and showed the number, but then they go and actually talk about a specific person's story.
Yeah, they
of how,
contextualized it as it's more than just numbers. It's all what God is doing at this church, and here's an example of what that looks like. That's probably my favorite part of this report that you found.
Yeah, well, and to see a church of this size do something like that, here they're focusing on their streams, how many streams they have, group involvement, number of volunteers, and this is not like something, I mean, obviously someone who is very good with graphic design spent the time to make this, but I mean, this isn't really rocket science. I mean, they literally just put massive text over really pretty images, and that's kind of it.
Yes, and also very, like I keep saying, I keep using the word loud, but these are very loud colors. They really pop, and they shout at you as you scroll by. They force you to stop and look at what's there.
Look at what was happening in our church. Here's another one. You sent me this one from Ocean City. Let me go back up here on the top. This is kind of insane. Like, so it's on their
The sparkler, yeah.
It's on their
one
website.
Of my favorites.
So this is actually a page in their website, and they've gone through and put all this, like they've dedicated an entire page on their site just for this. And so as you scroll through, very similar. So this is like the website version of the one we looked at the beginning.
Well, this is the same church.
Same exact church,
Yeah.
but just a different kind of look in how they did this report. Some of it, I'm like, I wouldn't have done too many of these photos all over the place because it kind of takes away from the text. But still, it looks great. They're highlighting all the things from everything from attendance to number of kids in VBS, it looks like, volunteers. I mean, this is pretty great stuff. All right, and one last one. We'll look at, this one's from Discover Life Church. You sent this one to me. So I guess first and foremost, they have a kid that's like waving his hair like he's rocking out or something. But here we go, gather. So stats.
Well, the reason why I like this report is because they made it really simple. There's a lot of empty space. I mean, I know there's background photos, but basically a lot of white space.
Yeah.
And they use colors to highlight what they want to draw your attention to. So the numbers are a different color than the text, just to make it pop a little bit. But they also only include like 4 or 5 stats per page. If you keep scrolling, you'll find other sections are very similar and very simple.
Okay.
So they focused in on and dialed in on the exact key things and the key takeaways that they want the congregation to have. And that's it. They didn't fill it with anything else. They just kept it very simple and very focused.
And so this is something that's kind of neat to see, like 250 plus backpacks filled with school supplies going to families. Like, this is stuff, sometimes I feel like churches can struggle to think of, well, what kind of data do we want to tell our people and focus on? I mean, it just comes down to anything your church has done that you can count. If that's something that's important to your ministry, then put it on your annual report.
Absolutely. And celebrate it. That's the whole point of this.
And every church is so unique as well. Like, so as we go through all these, examples, you quickly see, like, there's a rhyme and reason. A lot of them have similar stuff because these are similar types of churches in their ethos.
Right.
But every church is unique, and so some churches may want to report on the number of backpacks they filled. Other churches may want to report on the number of missionaries they've sent, whereas another church may want to report on the fact that they've had 2 more campuses open up where they've planted churches.
Absolutely. So it depends on what exactly is happening at your church and what season you're in. But you know deep down what's going on at your church and what to emphasize in these reports. The thing you have to do, though, is track that throughout the year.
Yes.
That's key, because you don't want to be stuck at the end of the year having to think back and remember everything that happened, because chances are you've forgotten a couple cool little things that happened at like summer camp or something like that.
Yes, well, and this is a perfect segue to our next segment of creating your report.
Yes.
Because it requires, number 1, tracking data, and number 2, taking that data and putting it somewhere in a way in which people can take that data in, read it, maybe watch it if it's a video.
Right.
And you mentioned recording data, and I just have to do a shameless plug. If you're not using a church management software of any sort, you need to be, because it's just going to make your life so much easier. Just to give you a quick example, with our software in ChurchTrac, things like keeping track of your people data, maybe you're wanting to have your attendance totals. I mean, when you're keeping track of this throughout the year, it is so easy to quickly view that report, or you can export that report to a CSV, so then you can add it to other stuff. And so by having a really good platform in place or tool to use to keep track of your data, that's the first step.
Absolutely. So having all that system in place, but then also making sure that you write it down as it happens. So not just like attendance, like a weekly attendance report, but whenever you have a salvation, report that in ChurchTrac, even on the people screen. If you have if you have that person added into your directory, leave a little note. Or make a user-defined field, a custom field where you can track baptism dates or salvation dates or something like that. And then also, if you have a membership process, when someone finishes that process and they officially become a member, record that. That way, at the end of the year, you know exactly how many people became an official member of your church during the year.
Makes life easy. Now, that's our shameless plug for the software. Now, back to, okay, you want to record the data. Now you want to actually present that data. Probably one of the best ways to do that is by using some sort of graphic editing, whatever program you can think of, like Photoshop or something to do that. I just want to throw out Canva is probably one of the best tools for a lot of churches to do this.
There's no comparison. Photoshop is great, and it's probably the overall best in terms of how powerful it is. But if you're like me and you're not a graphic designer and you have zero experience with Photoshop, but you want to present something that makes you look like you know what you're doing, you use Canva. And we recommend Canva, not because we're paid, because we're not because we're getting any kickback from them, because we're not. We use it all the time, and we love Canva.
And I think what's so cool about Canva for church leaders, number one, it's easy to use and stuff,
yes.
but it's also a tool that as a church you can get for free from Canva and get access to all their pro tools. Here's what I did. I quickly went to it. Now this sounds like an ad for Canva when we're in zero association with them, but
absolutely
this is
not.
a great tool, and I like to give churches
it.
this. I just search annual reports on Canva, and these are just a bunch of different random templates. There's 590 templates, Matt.
Yeah.
And I could start going through these templates and looking at them and seeing, is this something I can use? So it looks like this one is just like a cover page, but I could keep looking at some of these templates, and here we go.
It has 10 pages that you can use. So go ahead and click Customize this template.
Oh my goodness, we're getting nuts here.
Here we go. And now you can take these templates, these very professional, very well put together templates for an annual report of some kind, and make it yours. That way, and you can change the color of the background, you can change the fonts, you can remove whatever logos they've added and put your church logo in just to make it yours, make it look like you put it together just for your church.
I mean, and in real time here, I'm just customizing this thing, just playing around with it. But look at this. I've already renamed it Church Annual Report. I could start putting in images of our church and stuff and blah blah blah, and then keep going. And then about our church, and then your church, and then boom, you start telling people about your church and your mission statement and all this stuff. And then you start showing off the team, or maybe you had another team member you hired and the vision, and then you can go through and have stats about giving or whatever it is.
Love it.
I mean, this is crazy, man. It makes it really easy to generate a report that you can put on your website for people to download. You can show this off, create a slideshow. So there is really no excuse anymore these days. So I'm just calling you out right now. If you are using Excel sheets or Microsoft Word, Word 95 to create your reports for your church, I want to tell you there is a better way.
It's a much better way.
And it's either through using a tool like Canva or a million other tools online that just make it easier for you to create beautiful church media, to be able to just tell your people what's going on in your church and be able to do that in a way that people will not just go and just fall asleep when they're looking at all those numbers and stuff.
You want it to look great, so great that they'll want to look at it again later after the meeting, but also so that they can retain the information and recall it later. That's the problem with those more corporate, here's a Word document with a few key points, and then here's a spreadsheet with all the church budget. And all that really boring way to present it is no one's going to remember anything that you presented or anything that was in that document a couple days later, because none of it really stood out. It wasn't fun to read. Probably people didn't even look at it as you talked about it. They just listened to you talk, and that was it.
And this goes back to the power of an annual report for your church. When you do it well, when you have the right data that's unique to your church, you're presenting it in a way that people actually care about, they actually read, it will cause people to have that stirring in their heart where they say, man, I want to get involved. Man, I want to start giving to our church. Man, I want to do this. And then your church continues to grow, discipleship continues to happen, education, and all other kinds of good things. So that's it for church annual reports. What are some of the things that your church has included in your annual report? Let us know in the comments below. By the way, if you're struggle busing really hard making annual reports for your church, shoot us an email. We'd love to help you out with that.
Yeah, and check out the links in the video description below to learn more and see the examples we've shown. Also, we did a live stream a while back on Canva for Church. And if you want to take your church media to the next level, check that out.
Well, see y'all later. Now, oh, by the way, if this video gets 100 likes, Matt will have to shave his head.
Okay. I don't remember agreeing to this.